Thank you very much for taking your time out of your busy schedule today. We would now like to begin Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association press conference. I would like to introduce the speakers today. Chairman, Mr. Masanori Katayama. Vice Chairman, Mr. Yoshihiro Hidaka. Vice Chairman, Mr. Toshihiro Mibe. Vice Chairman, Mr. Toshihiro Suzuki. Vice Chairman, Mr. Makoto Uchida. Vice Chairman, Mr. Koji Sato. Vice Chairman, Mr. Seiichi Nagatsuka. We have 7 speakers on the stage today. I would now like to invite the Chairman Katayama to give an opening remarks. Thank you for the introduction. I am Katayama. This is the first press conference under the new structure. Thank you for coming. First of all, I would like to convey my deepest condolences for those who perished due to Noto Peninsula earthquake on January the 1st. My heartfelt sympathy goes to all those who were affected by the disaster. Many are still forced to remain in shelters. I pray for the earliest recovery and reconstruction of the disaster-hit areas. We will continue to provide support in a way that meets the needs of the affected areas in cooperation with the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, the national government and the local governments. I was appointed the chairman of JAMA and received the baton from the former chairman Toyoda, Mr. Toyoda, in January this year. As we face once-in-a-century major transformation in the auto industry, I am determined to address issues such as carbon neutrality and the so-called 2024 problem of physical distribution bottlenecks in close collaboration with the vice chairs and executive directors to surmount these difficulties with all-out efforts. After JAMA member was issued recommendation by the Fair Trade Commission concerning the violation of Subcontract Act, JAMA was requested by JFTC to make greater efforts to promote appropriate transactions in our industry as a whole by disseminating information on what actions are in violation of the Subcontract Act so as to prevent such violations, to review the current practice of payment reduction requests, and to enhance legal and regulatory compliance regarding price pass-through. JAMA takes this issue very seriously. At the Board of Directors meeting today, it was agreed that all member companies conduct emergency review of the status of legal and regulatory compliance immediately to more strongly ensure that our transactions are appropriate and to thoroughly take measures to prevent recurrence. At the same time, as a result of JFTC survey, the names of member companies that were confirmed to have maintained transaction prices without consultations with subcontractors were published. JAMA is determined to thoroughly make sure that all member companies will engage in explicit consultations for price negotiations and that they pass through prices based on the guidelines on passing on labor cost in cooperation with Japan Auto Parts Industries Association. As for the labor spring offensive, a few days ago, the results of spring wage negotiations were announced for most of the companies. The auto industry has protected employment even under difficult economic conditions in the past and continue to achieve wage increases which are above the average for large manufacturers. In the negotiations this year, the focus was on the trend of prices in particular, and almost all member companies agreed to fully meet the requested increase. As prices continue to rise, JAMA member companies will proactively work on growth, employment, and distribution, while further promoting appropriate transactions to realize optimum price pass-through in the entire supply chain. JAMA has identified 7 issues or 7 challenges to focus on in the coming couple of years in order to continue to contribute to the Japanese economy as the core industry and to achieve shift from automobile industry and development into mobility industry. In particular, on the issue of enhancing value and efficiency in logistics, commerce, and mobility, I myself am the owner and will consider whatever contribution we can make to address 2024 problem in logistics through data collaboration and commercialization of autonomous driving. To address other issues, together with all of the vice chairmen who are here today, we will all be taking ownership together. Each vice chair will coordinate efforts for a specific issue to be addressed to accelerate the whole of Japan effort, reaching out beyond auto industry by cooperating with Keidanren Mobility Committee member companies and through meetings with the Prime Minister's office. The challenges that we face are quite diverse, but I would like to ask the members of the media to continue to support us in our initiatives at JAMA. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Katayama. I would now like to invite Vice Chair to say a few words. First, Mr. Hidaka, please. Thank you. I am Hidaka. Hello, everyone. At JAMA, we have identified 7 issues for the auto industry. It has clear what we must do. I will do all I can to support Chairman Katayama. Regarding 7 issues, I will be responsible for issue 6, competitive green energy, and issue 7, foundation for cross-industry data collaboration and component traceability. I will be responsible for these 2 issues. As for issue 6, green energy, I will be working with Vice Chairman Suzuki to ensure the use of green energy in a competitive fashion and realize multi-pathway by developing conducive environment for those. And as for mobility infrastructure, issue 7, first of all, we have to address the imminent issue of EU battery regulation, and IT system Uranus will be thoroughly used to ensure battery traceability. We will also realize Mobility Smart Passport initiative and would like to work together with Keidanren Mobility Committee member companies to increase the data linkage and collaboration. We will be making efforts to address these 7 issues together amongst the chair and vice chairs to build momentum for Japanese auto industry.
Next, Vice Chair Mibe, please. This is Mibe. Under the new chair of Mr. Katayama, Vice Chairman and the new Chairman would like to be united and address various issues. Out of the 7 issues, I will be in charge of the semiconductor area. In the past few years, in the automotive manufacturing, there were shortages of semiconductors. In order to address this, among the semiconductors, we have legacy semiconductors and analog semiconductors. You may think those namings are rather obsolete, but they are the core semiconductors for auto industry. Moving forward, the demand for them is expected to grow, so we want to address them, and we want to secure stable supply. In particular, this cannot be completed only by JAMA, so JAMA and Tier 1 suppliers and trading firms and semiconductor manufacturers, we want to involve them, and through public and private sectors united, we want to proceed with the initiative, so I look forward your cooperation as well.
Next, Vice Chairman Suzuki, please. Hello, everyone. We will be supporting Chairman Katayama we, Vice Chairman and Executive Directors, will be supporting Mr. Katayama, Chairman. Everyone will be proactively engaged in addressing the challenges that the auto industry faces. As JAMA, we will have one voice, and we will follow the principles and rules, and will ensure that we communicate the right, correct message. And we will also engage with other industries so that we are able to contribute to Japanese economy. As for 7 issues, competitive green energy is one of the issues. Carbon neutral fuel should be introduced as early as possible. We would like to make efforts towards that end. A diverse or multi-pathways are pursued by JAMA, and carbon neutral fuel is one of the options to achieve carbon neutrality. In Japan, 82.5 million cars are owned, and therefore we would like to ensure that the use of carbon neutral fuel will become more widespread. But for commercialization and to expand supply of carbon neutral fuel, there are many challenges. This needs to be addressed not only by auto industry, but oil industry and other industries. We would also like to engage with Keidanren to solve issues one by one. And I believe what is important is to take action. Thank you.
Next, Vice Chairman Uchida. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Uchida. As you know, the current environment surrounding auto industry is significantly and rapidly changing. We are facing new challenges and new competitors are coming one after another. So if we do what we have been doing, we will not be address those situations. In that regard, as Chair Katayama mentioned earlier, the chair and the vice chairman at the JAMA will be united to expand the area that we coordinate, and we also protect our own individual area, and we want to exert our competitive edge. That will be the crucial point. Against this backdrop, among the 7 issues, I want to address infrastructure development of the proliferation of electric vehicles. I want to address this. The ratio of electrification in Japan is still not that high. So against this backdrop, how can we foster that a trend by talking with related companies as well as working with the government? We want to proceed with that. How can we show the competitive edge of Japan? I think there are a lot of areas that we can coordinate among each other. So as we discuss together with the government, we want to show the direction as JAMA. Thank you.
Next, Vice Chairman Sato, please. Thank you. Since January, under the new structure led by Chairman Katayama, we have begun activities. We are especially focusing on discussions of the 7 issues. We are also cooperating amongst vice chairmen across these issues and themes, and I believe we have made progress. Regarding the 7 issues, I myself will be responsible for the issue of stable procurement of critical resources and reflection of that important issue in the trade policy in Japan to ensure stable procurement. Multi-pathway, Japan-style carbon neutrality was advocated at G7, and to make sure that this is realized, we will be looking at the standards of automotive battery, recycling of batteries, and resource stockpiling. And we are reviewing various challenges regarding procurement of critical resources. Batteries and semiconductors also need stable supply of critical resources. Acquisition of critical resources will be very important for these products. Together with other vice chair, as JAMA, we will be united in our efforts, and would also like to coordinate our efforts with other industries, and would like to take specific concrete actions.
Lastly, Mr. Nagatsuka, Vice Chairman. I'm Nagatsuka from the Secretariat. Vice Chairman and the Chairman talked about earlier. The environment surrounding the auto industry is rapidly changing, and there are piles of challenges and issues. As the core industry, in order for the auto industry to support Japan's society and economy, there are 7 issues, and we want to face them right on. And beyond borders, we want to collaborate with the other industries, and we want to be united as a JAMA. As a person responsible for the Secretariat, through the transformation of the JAMA under the former Chairman Toyota, we have transformed. So we want to have this core in place, and we want to support the chairman. Together with the vice chairman and directors, we want to go through and pass through these challenges, and I look forward to your cooperation.
Thank you very much. We would now like to open the floor for questions. As we request every time, please kindly understand that this is the press conference for JAMA, and please refrain from asking questions regarding individual companies. We would also like to entertain questions from as many people as possible. Therefore, we would like to limit the number of questions to 1 per person. We also have online attendees, but we will be taking questions first from in-person attendees in this room. If you have a question, please raise your hand and the microphone will be brought to you. Please give us your name and affiliation before your question. Yes, attendees seated in the middle of the room, please. Mizutori from Nikkan Jido newspaper. I have 2 questions. First, about violation of Subcontractor Act by a member company. Chairman Katayama, you've mentioned that there will be an emergency review. When will this be done, and what will be reviewed? If there is anything concrete, please elaborate on this. And you have also mentioned that there will be a review of the request of cost reduction. And what are you planning to do currently? Another point, there was no mention of this today, but in the following year of mobility show, some events are considered. And what is the current status of the planning for such a show? There were 2 questions. First, about the recommendation from JFTC on Subcontract Act. As I mentioned earlier, as JAMA, regarding this issue, based on facts, we would like to make sure that there is no recurrence in the future, and how we should address this will be considered. And before that, we will first do a survey of the actual status of each company. Today at the board, we had discussion of this, and from all board members, it was agreed that we will do an emergency review. More specifically, and there is also some issue of the interpretation of the laws and regulations. Therefore, in order to prevent recurrence, first of all, there should be better understanding of the laws and regulations. And secondly, there were human errors involved. And in terms of system, whether a prevention of violation is possible is something we must address. This is an area for collaboration for 14 companies. As automotive manufacturer, if there are best practices of using system to address such issues, we would like to share such best practices and implement them across the board. It is not limited to the current issue, but triggered from this issue, we believe that we must make more efforts to address the concerns of the JFTC. And on a related note, regarding the request for cost reduction, based on the evidence of cost reduction, And as a result of thorough discussions, suggestions, proposals can be made. And that goes without saying. As for cost up factors, cost increase factors of the suppliers will also have to be fully discussed in determining the price. As for the second question, last year, regarding the show, last year for the first time we had mobility show, and as you rightly mentioned, this is the skip year after the mobility show last year, but for us this year is also very important. It was the first ever mobility show last year, and 1.18 million visitors came. We would like to maintain the momentum. When it comes to mobility, I believe this is a concept that will become wider, and we should keep the momentum. Specifically, we had discussions and we had specific proposals about the substance of these discussions. We will have to further refine our discussion at JAMA, but in the large scheme of the things, there was an agreement from all members. And the thinking is that after the first ever mobility show last year, which was more B2C, as opposed to that, we would like to have all visitors enjoy the wonders of the mobility. So we would like to make a mobility show both B2B and B2C. And there are also some interesting discussions with suppliers. So B2B plus C is the theme for the skip year this year. And next year, it will be B2B and B2C. From all directors, I have received endorsement, and at a later date, and since we would like to ask for your help in keeping the momentum, we would like to give a further update at a later date.
Person in the very front row, on the left. Nihon Keizai Shimbun Okinawa is my name. As for the automation or electrification, there are 7 issues and your priority. There are various options, and there is a shift to electrification in the world, and Japanese manufacturers are rather lagging behind in that. As the Chairman Katayama, what is your perception about this situation? And unless we focus on the electrification, perhaps it will be difficult for Japan to win in the global market. What is your view on this? Is that all your question? As for electrification, the global situation and direction as a JAMA, should I answer to this question? Right. As I explained earlier, as JAMA, the so-called multi-pathway has been talked about, providing variety of options. Last year, G7 summit was held in Hiroshima with private and public sectors. We try to communicate about that. In the world, the need of multi-pathway or the reasonableness of multi-pathway has been gradually understood in the world. Against this backdrop, for example, looking at the BEV assessment, I think you are talking about the market share in the world, but more than anything, what I would like to say is in terms of technology or engineering, Japan is the country that has the full lineup in the multi-pathway. So in that regard, each country has various regulations, and there is energy demand situation, and what timing do we want to launch what kind of technology or vehicle, that is up to each company. So as JAMA, we want to build up the electrification of Japanese automobiles solidly and a diverse usage. of vehicles, and not only in advanced countries but also in developing countries. We want to contribute to the CO2 reduction. So we want to proceed with the multi-pathway without glitch. That is what we want to promote as a JAMA. So there are 7 issues. And as I mentioned, the synthetic fuel and other things are included, showing there are a lot of engineering potential, and we want to strike a good balance in pursuing this. That's all.
Thank you. Then next person who is seated in the front row. I'm Nakamura from Yomiuri newspaper. Thank you for taking my question. Recently, some OEMs and suppliers have engaged in fraudulent type certification. On the part of JAMA, what were the discussions at the board to prevent such violations? Regarding type certification, there were some series of problems, and as JAMA, regarding these cases coming to light, we are deeply searching our souls. First of all, we have to find facts, establish facts. We have to identify the problems, and these are problems of each individual company. And first of all, the problems identified will be shared amongst JAMA members, and we will continue to ask why the problem occurred. We will continuously ask questions of why, and we will enhance our capabilities and capacities. In doing so, we will address the problems. That is what we are discussing. Customers and from the society as a whole, we would like to be trusted, and we will make cars that will be considered safe to be used. And this is not true. This is true not only for Japan but for the world, where we have 30% share, and therefore we would like to elevate our capabilities here. And that is what we are discussing. At this juncture, we would like to take questions from online participants. If you have a question, amongst those who are participating virtually, we will call upon you. When your name is called, please turn on the video and unmute the microphone. If you have a question, please use a raise hand function of the Zoom.
So Bloomberg's Inajima-san, please. We will switch this screen. So when you see yourself on the screen, would you please start asking questions? Inajima of Bloomberg, can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. First, my question is to Chairman Katayama. The Bank of Japan on the 19th policy, they have decided to release negative interest rate. Looking at the Japanese economy and the auto industry, what is your take on this? Second question to Sato-san, Mr. Sato. You talked about your area of trade policy. I think each country is strengthening the protectionist view. So trade policy that will not give negative impact to Japan. I think that METI is going to take this role, but as an industry, what kind of request are you going to make to the government? Can you elaborate on that? So first, BOJ's decision of the financial policy decision, monetary decision, and how will that impact our industry? So for the normalization, negative interest rate was reversed, and moving into the normal situation. We talk about normal situation. So as an industry, I believe this was a major step taken. Having said that, the BOJ says that they will maintain monetary easing and the interest will not increase dramatically. So major drastic change we have at the start of the moving away from the deflationary situation in Japan, and there is a deflationary situation, and there will not be a panic situation. And another thing I'm concerned about is interest rate. There is an interest gap between Japan and the U.S. There is an exchange rate that is we are focusing on. There is an appreciation of the yen or depreciation of the yen more than we expected. And those forex would directly impact our business. So we want to carefully watch the situation moving forward. At any rate, there is a step made for normalization. And at the right timing, at the right direction, I think we are moving toward the right direction. That's how we see. That's all. Comment from Vice Chair Sato. Thank you for your question. As to the trade policy question that you have asked, I would like to answer. One of the 7 issues is the battery EV related battery ecosystem build-up. In this landscape, there are some discussions, but so far, to Asia in particular, rather than trade, but the promotion of the industry has been mindful in the Japan auto industry. So in that regard, in thinking about the future of battery with private and public sector together, by having the promotion of those countries, we want to address this topic. But as you mentioned, there is a move toward the block economy formation, and battery technology is in the midst of the advancement, and diverse approach is envisaged. So if each play the role in arbitrary manner, that will be difficult to get the economic rationale. So in Japan, to a certain extent, from the upstream to downstream, a consistent ecosystem is to be created, and that mechanism can be brought to Asia. And by so doing, we want to show the repercussion effect to the trade policy. That's what we want to aim for. Thank you very much.
Next, from Toyo Keizai Shimpo, Yamada-san, please. We will be switching the screen. Once you see yourself on the screen, please start with your question. This is Yamada from Toyo Keizai. Thank you for taking my question. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead. I have one question. It's related to one of the first questions regarding the price with the suppliers. I have a follow-up question. Price reduction is out of the question, but based on evidence, cost reduction based on evidence is necessary, and I believe that that is actually practiced. On the other hand, when we hear from suppliers, no matter the emphasis on evidence, ultimately it is based on the power relationship. And even despite the evidence, the weaker may find it difficult to negotiate with the stronger. And how can you improve the situation to ensure equality in the amongst the negotiating parties? Regarding that question, already in various ways, JFTC has issued various guidelines, and we have to make sure that we will follow these guidelines in our activities. For example, regarding a price discussion, whether there is an explicit discussion of price is an important point. And as you pointed out, there may be we should make sure that there's no imbalance of power between the negotiating parties. The use of a dominant position is the worst of the problem. And there is already a guideline for price negotiation. So we will make sure we follow that guideline and have a price discussion. Even with the guideline, I still believe that it is difficult. I'm not trying to criticize, but maybe in order to take action beyond the guideline, if you have any idea of what needs to be done, please comment on those. On that point, as I mentioned earlier, triggered by the current issue, and to prevent the recurrence, we will have discussion in a future-oriented fashion. If one of the problems is the interpretation of the laws and regulations, then 14 members will have a thorough discussion to fill in the gap. So the guideline will be the yardstick, and we will also be filling in the gaps where there are for interpretation of the laws and regulations as a first step.
Next, Mr. Terasaki, the floor is yours. I will switch the screen, so when you see yourself on the screen, would you please start to make statement? Besuka Terasaki is my name. Hello. First point, as a JAMA, how would you like to be involved with the Japanese government under the new system? This is a question to Chairman Katayama. Up until last year, there was a G7 Hiroshima summit, and certain results was obtained together with the government under the former chairman. With the change of the review of the auto tax, what kind of request are you going to make to the Japanese government relating to that? Perhaps the second question. Vice Chair, Mr. Uchida, who is in charge of number 2, is a question. So infrastructure development for the proliferation of EV. Concretely, what kind of actions or initiatives are you thinking? Are you going to make requests to the Japanese government, for example? I would like to hear your views on this. So is that all? Yes. Now, first, Chairman Katayama, please. As JAMA, how are we going to be involved with the Japanese government? That was your question. Like before, it's natural with the METI and MLET and the Ministry of the Environment. With those, we want to coordinate sufficiently. In the former structure, with the Prime Minister Kishida, we had a mobility discussion session framework. So we want to discuss how we want to realize mobility society. Those are 7 issues that we consider are closely linked to this topic. We want to shake hands with the Japanese government about the basic framework under the long-term vision. As for the tax system, from before, as for the taxation of the auto body, we have been talking about the burden to be on the user side, and we have been consistent on this idea. But at the same time, in order to move toward mobility society, and when it comes to carbon neutrality society, then there are some gaps that we are observing vis-a-vis the society that we have faced so far. So on this area, I think this year is a very important year in discussing with the government. So by the end of the year, I believe that we will be able to have a more concrete discussion with the government. And in that regard, it's a very crucial year. So we want to approach in that way. from Vice Chairman Uchida, please. Thank you for your question. For example, the penetration rate of EV in Japan is still a little less than 2%. So one of the reasons why not purchasing EV is because of the concerns about the charging infrastructure. For example, if you live in the condos, new condos, they have various systems introduced. However, for the existing condos in Japan, about 40% of the people live in condo in the metropolitan Tokyo, 70% live in those condo, and only 0.06% have charging facilities in there. Can we ask those condo people to install charging facilities? We need a discussion. And how do we charge? How do we install those charging facilities? For example, auto manufacturers have a rapid charging, and there is a difference of the outlet on the right to left among the auto manufacturers. We have to change that kind of thing. And one of the crucial thing is condos' value should go up by installing those charging stations. We want to address that kind of thing as well. So the mechanism creation to reduce the burden of the installation of the charging and reduce the maintenance costs or the installation at the parking areas. These are the three areas that we want to focus, and we want to have the discussion with the government and proceed with these. And for example, so that we can eliminate the concerns of those people who want to buy EV. Thank you very much. Did we answer your question, Mr. Terasaki? Yes.
ここでまた会場の方
We will come back to take question in this room once again. Due to time constraints, we will be taking questions from two more media. The person who raised the hand first, the person who is seated in the front section of the room, and then next person who is seated in the right section of the room. I am Wakai from Asahi newspaper. I have two questions about the Subcontract Act violation and emergency review. At the time of the certification, fraudulent certification, there were reviews in the industry, but still there were subsequent violations. So please clarify from when to when this review will be carried out, and please make sure that the measures are effective. And the second point is that you've mentioned that lifting of the negative interest rate is a huge step forward, and I believe this is a tailwind for the auto industry. The negative interest rate had been a tailwind for auto industry. Could you summarize how you see the negative interest impact on auto industry thus far? First, about Subcontract Act issue. And in other issues, you've pointed out that there were some recurrence of the problem. And so specifically, how the review this time will be conducted, I believe that was the question. We must absolutely make certain that there is no recurrence. At the board, we deliberated on this. So first of all, we had thorough discussion of this. As for the specifics of what this entails, there is a supply chain committee at JAMA, and more technically, specific countermeasures for the current problem will be considered. And as I mentioned, triggered from this problem, we will be looking at what we need to do in the future and implement that across the board amongst all the member companies. As for the specific issue involved this time, the member company in question is to provide information to the maximum extent possible in the future-oriented fashion to prevent recurrence. That should lead to concrete measures. First of all, we must absolutely make sure that there is no recurrence, and we are making utmost effort regarding that. As for the impact of the lifting of a negative interest rate policy, how that will impact our auto industry, and what was the impact, including positive impact of the negative interest in the auto industry. Not a negative interest rate per se, but overall monetary policy was an easing policy, and I believe in many respects it had a positive impact. But however, on the other hand, with respect to exchange rate, it did not lead to stability. Rather than considering the past as being more beneficial, we consider this to be a step forward. Very objectively, we are looking at the current policy change, and as I've mentioned before, we hold this decision in high regard. We appreciate the decision, and I believe that is true for all of the auto industry.
The person on the right row. Abe from TV Tokyo. I have 2 points. First, question to Chairman Katayama. Related to the previous question, as for the emergency review, you say that you are going to think about concrete actions from now on, but the results of the emergency review, do you intend to announce the results? And you said there were some human errors. Can you elaborate on that? This is the first question. Question to Mr. Hidaka. As for data linkage, Uranos will be utilized to promote this. Looking from the current status, what are the challenges of data linkage and what is the schedule? Can you share with us on those points? First of all, your question to me about the results of the emergency review. Do we announce that or not? From the JFDC, there was a request to us. So naturally, we will announce the results of the emergency review. But we are not sure. I'm not sure how we are going to announce this. But in principle, we are going to report. So we see no issue about this. And as to human errors, I'm not able to explain specifically, but there is an area that could be prevented by the system. However, that was done manually. As for other example, there was a situation could have been stopped by using a system. So in order to prevent the recurrence of such incidents, we want to take more proactive actions. And as one example, I talked about this. Now, Vice Chair, Mr. Hidaka, please. Now, data infrastructure establishment and the challenges and the schedule. I think that was your question. First, Uranos ecosystem is being smoothly built. And from April this year, under pilot, with some manufacturers and with parts manufacturers in supply chain are involved in the operational trial. Originally, what we focused is the European battery regulation. In order to address that, the linked data should be collected per one battery. That is why we built a system. But this system is very versatile system. So one of the issues that we have is that moving forward, in order to manufacture one car, starting from the raw material parts manufacturer and transport manufacturers, what is the entire emission of the carbon dioxide? I think most probably in the future, such data will be required. And as for people in the other industry, recycle, reuse, and everything are connected in the ecosystem. So how do we want to look at the entire system like a passport? And another thing is when EV was created, the reuse of EV batteries, and when those batteries are exported from Japan to outside the country, we need to tracking. So in various areas, we need to link data. So by connecting various industry, we want to have a infrastructure of Uranus. So we want to have a use case of that. And the various data, among the data, there are some data that is very confidential from some manufacturers. So we will need to protect such a confidentiality of data. In this regard, outside the company, we can create a company that can manage and control such confidential information for all parties involved. That is what we are thinking. Third, even if we create the excellent thing as Japan, that has to be applied globally. Otherwise, we will have a Japan unique system, China unique system, European unique system, which will complicate the situation. So with Uranus ecosystem and the various regions and the countries, the data infrastructure should be connected with the interface. So we want to communicate for that with private and public. And we want to create something that can be used globally with only one input. And as for the schedule, so as for the pilot case of European electricity case, we thought that February next year is a deadline, but there is a delay of issuance of the European regulation. So summer of 2025 or beyond will be the timing that we must address. So we have some more time. So we want to operate the pilot study smoothly and roll out what we create. Thank you.
There may be some more questions, but due to time constraints, we must end the press conference at this point in time. Thank you very much for attending.